Hey there and welcome back to a very special episode of NBA 2K18. My name is Pete and today we complete episode 50 of our NBA 2K18 My League expansion series. In the previous episode, we made arguably the biggest move in franchise history for the Legionnaires. We acquired Anthony Davis in free agency, and we also got ourselves a few reserve players who might be able to help out should one of our regular rotation players get injured. Heading into today's episode, we still need to fill at least one more roster spot, because we cannot proceed into the regular season until we have at least 14 players on the contract. Right now we have 13, but number 14 was an easy choice for me. I know we rejected him last episode, but today Devin Reed gets a second chance with the Legionnaires. I already talked about him briefly last time, so we're only going to take a quick look at his skill set here. Reed is a great shooter and a very good defender as well, and the fact that he's only 25 years young is what I really like about him. We made the decision in the last episode to bring in Danny Green as the reserve shooting guard, and Green is the more established veteran no doubt, but he is also 33 years old, and it remains to be seen whether or not he can keep his 74 overall rating. And that is really the big reason why we bring in Reed. He will more than likely not experience a sudden drop-off, and if such a thing happens for Green, he could actually overtake him in the rotation. The contract offer here should already be familiar. We are going with the established 1-year minimum contract, which I'm sure he will gladly take. By the way, yes, I have read your comments and I would have loved to bring in Diamond Stone as well. For some reason though, we cannot offer him our mid-level exception. Maybe that has something to do with the fact that we declined his qualifying offer. I'm not quite sure about that, but it is what it is. Stone will remain a free agent for now, and after taking a few days to think about it, Devin Reed now joins the Louisville Legionnaires. And with that, I would say we can now leave free agency behind us. Yes, we technically still have that mid-level exception and could use it on someone else than Stone, but then again we have gone over the salary cap already, our roster is pretty crowded already, and I don't think we need to use this exception on a player who then doesn't play much. It just puts us into more trouble financially if we want to make trades down the line, and who knows, maybe we'll also find a diamond in the rough in the summer league. For now though, let's move on to player progression, and let's see how our team has developed. Anthony Davis unfortunately did not improve any further. He actually got worse in a few areas of his game, so we will have to keep an eye on that. For the moment though, I'm not too worried. Rodney Hood then goes up by 1 point to become an 82 overall, while Andre Flanders shows a slightly more impressive 5-point jump, now up to an 81 overall. Mohamed Bamba also jumps up by 3 points and becomes the 4th player on the team with an 80 plus rating here, but our team chemistry of course will improve down the line, and that will push a few more guys past the threshold. Bryce Johnson now up to a 79 after a 2-point jump. Deontay Davis also jumps up 1 more point to become a 79. Tyler Ulis also improves his playmaking abilities further to become a 78 overall, and Josh Richardson reaches that same rating after a 2-point jump. Mitch Dennis then the 2nd player on the team with a huge leap forward. The 5-point jump here brings him up to 75. Slowly but steadily he becomes a bit more versatile. Newcomer Festus Ezeli then remains at a 75, that is excellent and keeps him just as useful as he was when we signed the contract, and Chris Dunn actually jumps up by 1 point to a 74, although this is somewhat confusing because he was listed as a 75 when we signed him. Once again though, I think team chemistry played a role there as well. Danny Green then luckily able to hold his 74 overall rating. He is listed with a 2-point jump here, but that 74 was exactly what he had when we signed him. Devin Reed then, despite his comparatively young age, does not improve any further, but with his 72 overall, he still remains serviceable as a 3&D specialist. A bit of unfortunate news then for all fans of Rajon Rondo. His rating drops off by 2 points and he is now the lowest ranked player on the team, but then again we mostly brought him in for his veteran presence and not necessarily to play significant minutes. So that is the 14-man roster that will accompany us into the regular season. However, before we can make that jump, we have to build a second roster first, because it is now time for the Summer League. And I will spare you the selection process here. This right here is the final roster that we're using for the Summer League, but let's at least briefly get to know the personnel. Dion Anderson here, a 2nd round pick from last year, as you can see with his ratings, a good playmaker and defender, and possibly someone who will fight for that last remaining roster spot we still have. His backup then Lorenzo Brown, he was already picked in 2013 and can safely be classified as a pure playmaker. 2K then forced me to keep Andre Flanders in the lineup, but I don't think I have to introduce him much, so let's move on with Bryn Forbes, who also was for some reason just put in there by 2K. I couldn't do much about that, but with his shooting abilities he's not the worst pick in the world. With Aubrey Dawkins then, I am admittedly a bit surprised that he's still a free agent. He was drafted in the late first round 2 years ago, and he is an interesting guy, already 24 years old, pretty raw still, very athletic, but if he can develop a bit further, I see signs of a good 3-and-D player in him. Tyler Dorsey then makes the team purely based on his shooting abilities. I believe we already had him on the team last year as well. Once again, I don't think I have to introduce this guy. Mitch Dennis was also forced into the roster by 2K, but it will allow him to get some valuable playing time before the season starts. Derek Jones, also once again 2K just put him in there, I couldn't do much about that, but he will hopefully provide us with a few highlights. Down low then we experiment a bit, for example with 67 overall Cody Lydon. Lydon was an early second-round pick last season, and he has a pretty solid post-game for a 20-year-old. Combined with his fairly nice strength and speed, he is definitely a guy to keep an eye on. Jesse Sims then, well, his story is quickly told. He is a big man who can shoot, and that is all I expect from him. Bamba then once again makes the team whether we like it or not, but much more interesting, Diamond Stone finally makes a Legionnaire roster. Unfortunately though, it's just for Summer League, but he will very likely play heavy minutes. Last but not least then, center Daniel Nikolic. He is your run-of-the-mill big man, he can rebound, he can defend a bit. We'll see how he does, I don't expect him to play much. And with that, let's now head into the Summer League. And I believe for the first time in this series, we actually take part in the NBA Summer League. The last 2 seasons we always played in the 2K Summer League. Our first game against the Golden State Warriors then ends in a more than decisive victory. The Legionnaires take care of business and win the game by 23 points, even though none of our players really stood out and as a whole we actually played pretty badly. Andre Flanders leads the way with 13 points on a 40% shooting performance, followed closely by power forward Cody Lydon, who finishes the game shooting 5 of 9 from the field for 11 points and 7 rebounds. I also liked what I saw from Bryn Forbes with 10 points and 3 steals, and Mohamed Bamba once again was a menace on defense. He only scored 8 points but racked up 2 steals and 3 blocks in only 21 minutes. Also a guy I was fairly impressed with, point guard Dion Anderson, who really did a little bit of everything tonight, and he finished with 6 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists and 2 steals in 28 minutes. Moving on the very next day then we go up against the New York Knicks, where we once again came away with an impressive victory. A 17-point win for the Legionnaires, and it was the night of Aubrey Dawkins. The highlights here are mostly all his. The 24-year-old shooting guard had some fantastic plays and finished the game with 22 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals and the block in 22 minutes. Bryn Forbes, once again among the top scorers, he finished the game with 14 points and remained perfect from the field, while point guard Dion Anderson also once again had a nice stat line with 13 points, 4 assists and 2 steals in 30 minutes. I also once again liked what I saw from Cody Lydon. Yes, his shooting numbers were not the best, but he still came close to a double-double tonight, as he finished the game with 8 points and 9 rebounds. Diamond Stone then also a bit more noticeable in this one. Scoring-wise, he only put up 5 points, but he also added 9 rebounds, 3 assists and 3 blocks to his stat line. A few days of rest for the Legionnaires now before we go up against the Memphis Grizzlies next, and starting with that game I decided I no longer wanted to risk any injuries, so for the remainder of the Summer League, Mo Bamba, Mitch Dennis and Andre Flanders will not get playing time. Yes, I know they probably could have put up some impressive numbers, but especially Bamba already had a few minor injuries last season, so I would rather play it safe here. The game itself then ends in familiar fashion with a double-digit victory, and after having 2 rather quiet games, tonight was the night for Diamond Stone, who finished the game with a big double-double with 22 points and 16 rebounds. Next to Forbes and Dorsey, another good performance once again came from Cody Lydon, who might have taken a few too many shots but still finished in double digits with 11 points and 5 rebounds. Also making an appearance for the first time, Daniel Nikolic, who played only 17 minutes, but those were good enough for 11 points, 6 rebounds, a steal and 3 rejections. Point guard Dion Anderson also once again had a fantastic night. He really showed some versatility in this one, finishing with 10 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists and 2 steals. And with this victory, the Legionnaires remain undefeated, and they advance to the NBA Summer League Championship Tournament. Only 4 more games separate us from a potential Summer League championship, and we take on the Detroit Pistons in the first one, which once again results in a dominant victory for the Legionnaires. Winning all 4 quarters, Louisville takes the game with a 21-point lead, with Diamond Stone once again at the top of the scoring list. He went to the free throw line a lot tonight and finished the game with 17 points and 8 rebounds. Sharpshooter Dorsey made 5 3-pointers tonight and finished with 16 points, and power forward Cody Lydon once again also had an impressive night, barely missing the double-double here with 15 points and 9 rebounds. At this point, it should come to no one's surprise that him and Dion Anderson are the two guys that I'm looking at a bit more closely, and Anderson once again more than proved his worth in this game. Another very versatile stat line here with 6 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists and 2 steals. This now means the Legionnaires will move on to the next round where they will face the Charlotte Hornets, and just like in the playoffs a few weeks ago, the Legionnaires are once again able to take care of business. A 14-point victory here allows the Legionnaires to move on to the next round, and 14 points, that is also the high-scoring mark tonight, produced by none other than point guard Dion Anderson. Now, in the last game, Anderson shot 2 of 11, tonight he made only 2 of 10 from the field. Those numbers are definitely a bit concerning, but at least in this one, he also got himself to the free throw line 12 times, and he was once again able to put up decent numbers, rounding off his stat line of 14 points, 5 rebounds and 6 assists. Diamond Stone then also continues to impress with a 13-point, 13-rebound double-double, and backup point guard Lorenzo Brown also gets noticed for the first time, putting up 11 points, 5 assists and 2 blocks. And with that, the competition is now down to 4 teams, including the Legionnaires, and in the Summer League semifinals we now take on the Atlanta Hawks. And this one really could have gone either way. Atlanta won 3 of 4 very close quarters against us. The second quarter here, however, was enough for the Legionnaires to ultimately come away with the victory. Our top scorer tonight, Bryn Forbes, with 17 points and 5 rebounds. Diamond Stone also once again scoring in double digits, but not so strong on the boards. While Dion Anderson again deserves a mention for his performance. The shooting numbers still not impressive, but a stat line of 10 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists and 4 steals definitely is. And with that, the Louisville Legionnaires now move on to the Summer League Finals. And very fittingly actually, we take on the New Orleans Pelicans, whose former superstar Anthony Davis has just joined us, so this game right here might be the early beginning of a potential rivalry. However, if that's the case, then the Legionnaires definitely come away with a good start here. A 6-point victory over the Pelicans secures the Summer League championship, and with that, the Legionnaires remain the kings of the Summer League in the NBA. They now have won their 3rd Summer League championship in 3 years. Stats-wise, tonight was once again the night for power forward Cody Lydon, who had to play heavy minutes but also finished with 20 points and 6 rebounds. Derek Jones was impressive as well with 15 points, but I also liked the versatility from Aubrey Dawkins tonight. 13 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals and 2 blocks. A great stat line here, definitely showcasing his potential. Speaking of versatility, I think point guard Dion Anderson deserves another mention tonight. Yes, once again the shooting numbers are not overly impressive, but over the course of this entire Summer League, Dion Anderson was almost always able to get both rebounds and assists to go along with his scoring. Just like tonight, where he finished with 8 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists and 1 steal. And with that, the Summer League has come to an end. On the top right, you can see Diamond Stone earned Summer League MVP honors, and even though he didn't really shine in the final game, he definitely had a few impressive performances. We now move on to the All-Star City selection, and the 2021 NBA All-Star Weekend will take place in Oklahoma City. That event is still a few months away though, and at this point 2K once again prompts us to select a draft class. Now at this point you should already know that I'm not a huge fan of the automatically generated draft classes, which is why I have once again selected a community created draft class, and once again it is a fictional one, but one that has realistic faces. It is JEDL's fictional draft class Year 1, as far as I know though only available on PC. Now with this draft class I have a few plans. I have decided that instead of taking the player names made by the draft class creator, I will name the entire draft class after you guys. Now, here is how the whole thing is going to work. By the time this video goes up, the Pete Complete Patreon probably has slightly over 30 patrons. Those patrons are in no matter what. The draft class, however, has roughly 80 or even more players in it, and that is where the comment section comes into play. All you have to do to get a chance at naming rights for one player is to leave a comment down below, and in that comment I would like you to leave the name for the player and maybe also your preferred position. Now, 2 quick rules about this to keep it civilized. Number 1, you can only enter once, so please don't spam the comment section. And number 2, please make an effort to take at least somewhat serious names. I definitely do not want to have Paulie McBallface run around the league next year. With that being said, we will also quickly skip over the 2K Hoop Summit. Team USA beats Team World by 18 points, but we will not have a closer look at the player performances at this point. The names will change anyway, and I also plan to nerf a few of the prospects. There are 1 or 2 guys in this draft class that might just be a bit too powerful. And so the beginning of the new season is getting closer and closer. The only thing we have left on the to-do list is training camp, so let's jump in and see who the 3 players are going to be that receive special attention this year. The first camp that we are going to use, that is the Untapped Potential camp. Now, I have a few rules in place for that camp, and I talk about those a bit more in depth in episode 16, so if you want to catch up, I will leave a link to that in a card on the right. The player we sent to that camp, however, that was an easy choice for me. After winning the Most Improved Player award this season, Mohamed Bamba has more than earned the increase in potential. After last season, I see a superstar in the making in him, and let's make sure his potential rating reflects that. As you can also see on screen right now, I have updated Mohamed Bamba's hair. I was a bit torn between a few of the hairstyles. I think this one right here fits him quite well, and it also kind of resembles his hairstyle in real life at the moment. The next training camp then will be perimeter defense, because we have a ton of capable scorers at the wing, but especially the young guys could become better defenders. So we use this camp on Andre Flanders. This now improves several of his defensive ratings. He is still not much more than an average perimeter defender, but I think this camp pushes him in the right direction. For the third camp, we will then go with perimeter defense again, and this time we use it on sharpshooter Mitch Dennis. I believe we already did the same last season. Dennis is really not a great defender at the moment, so the camp here is used to make him a bit more serviceable at that end of the floor. So here we are, ready to begin the Louisville Legionnaires' 4th NBA season. However, there is one more thing I'd like to do before we continue. Now, you probably remember Dion Anderson. As it happens, the Legionnaires still have an open roster spot, and I have to say I was impressed with Anderson's versatility in the Summer League, which is why we are now offering that final roster spot to the 24-year-old point guard. The contract offer here is the familiar minimum contract. The salary figure displayed in red, I don't really know what that means. The signing went fine, and so Dion Anderson now joins the Legionnaires and completes the roster. We'll see how he develops. He might get some playing time in blowout games, but if those only happen rarely, we might also send him down to the G League. And with that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into the next season. What better episode to do that than in episode 50, and look at who we're facing in the very first game. Yes, it is going to be a rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals, as we will have our season opener in Cleveland against King James and the Cavaliers. And that Cavalier roster is still as stacked as it was last season, now with 3 90 overall players in Thomas, Doncic and LeBron, Love and Thompson also still on the roster, and the bench not too shabby either here with names like Norman Powell, Glenn and Thomas Robinson. Before we jump into the game, however, let's have a quick look at the rotation for the start of the next season. At the point guard, we remain with Tyler Ulis, however, his minutes have been slightly reduced compared to last season. The Legionnaires' leading scorer, Josh Richardson, still starts at the shooting guard. Putting him on the bench after the season he had last year would just be unfair in my opinion, and so his playing time remains largely unchanged at the 2 guard. Mostly because of his size and defense, Rodney Hood also still continues to start at the 3, his minutes though also reduced down to 25. Down low then, we probably have one of the most interesting frontcourts in the league, as Anthony Davis and Mo Bamba will both play roughly 30 minutes a night. Yes, I know both of them could play a bit more, but I am going for an approach here that is similar to what we saw from the Spurs a few years ago, avoiding heavy minutes for the starters in the regular season. We will of course play them a bit more if the games are close, but for the most part we will try to keep them fresh for the playoffs. Our bench is excellent, especially down low where we might just have one of the best 4-man rotations in the entire league at the moment, and so I don't think it's necessary to play anyone here 35 or more minutes a night. Moving on to the bench, we now have Chris Dunn for 15 minutes at the point guard. That still leaves about 10 minutes of room at the point guard that could either be filled by Flanders, Richardson or Hood. Flanders himself then will be the 6th man off the bench with 27 minutes. Depending though on how he improves during the season, a place in the starting lineup could soon be possible. Mitch Dennis then gets 20 minutes off the bench, the same as Bryce Johnson, while our defensive specialist down low, Deontay Davis, remains with 16. That is our 10-man rotation heading into the season, and those are also the 10 guys we send out on the court in Quicken Loans Arena as we jump into our first game of the new season against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, the game began with a fairly slow start. Both sides had lots of misses and turnovers. Anthony Davis started off strong in the first quarter with 9 points and 3 rebounds. He could have done a bit more, but I have to admit I still have to grow accustomed to having a true superstar on the court. Overall, in the first half, however, Cleveland definitely played the better game. For stretches, the Legionnaires couldn't even hit the easiest shots. We had lots of open misses, our bench, especially Andre Flanders, was ice cold, and so no surprise at halftime to see the Cavaliers with a 12-point lead. In the second half, however, we increased the defensive pressure. For the next 24 minutes, we opted for the full-court press, and as a result, in the third quarter, the Cavaliers only scored 16 points, while we were able to narrow the deficit down to 3. And that same strategy also continued to pay off in quarter number 4. The Cavaliers slowly fell apart on offense. The Legionnaires finally found their stroke and shot over 60% for the quarter. And even though it still was a close finish, we kept the upper hand. And so in game 1 of the new season, the Louisville Legionnaires defeat the reigning champions from Cleveland 96-91. Our performer of the night though, not superstar Anthony Davis, but fresh with the new haircut, Mohamed Bamba. No doubt, once again, a monster stat line from Bamba in this one. 22 points, 17 rebounds, 7 rejections. His length and mobility are still an insane combo, and it gave the Cavaliers a lot of trouble tonight. Anthony Davis then with a solid debut for the Legionnaires. He barely missed a double-double, but 20 points and 9 rebounds are not a bad stat line by any means. And despite the scoring prowess of our frontcourt, George Richardson continued right where he left off last season. With 18 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists and 3 steals, Richardson definitely played a big part in the victory tonight. While Andre Flanders didn't really put up the numbers to make a claim for Richardson's starting job anytime soon, his 10 points came on a horrible 5 of 17 shooting performance, which at least for the moment keeps Richardson locked in as the starter. Bryce Johnson then once again making the case for Mr. Reliable. He only played 15 minutes but shot 5 of 8 from the field for 10 points. Overall, he was probably the Legionnaires' best bench player tonight. A few more select performances here. Tyler Ulis with 5 points and 5 assists. Not really impressive, but definitely efficient. A quiet night for Chris Dunn with 5 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists and a steal. And also a bit of a disappointing night for Mitch Dennis, who missed all of his shots and finished the game with 0 points. And so here we are with the new season underway. 81 more games are waiting and then hopefully the playoffs as well, but this first game already showed some tremendous promise. With the Trailblazers coming up next, we make the cut at this point. Don't forget to leave a comment for a chance to have your name appear in the draft class. And of course, if you like the episode, then I would be happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you want to support the channel further, then you can also subscribe if you haven't already, or you can support the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.